Hello, I'm Mr. McBrien. This is TEJ20, Introduction to Networks.
Ontario would like for students to be able to talk about different kinds of networks, including LANs and WANs, talk about peer-to-peer and client-server networks and other networking concepts. So first off, we need to understand what a network is. It's defined as two or more computers connected together. Peer-to-peer when there's no server. Client-server when a server is involved. Now we need to make sure that we can discuss the uses and benefits of a network, of a local area network. Talk about why these things have value. So largely the answer to this is in terms of sharing. So we can share peripherals. If we take a given school that might have, let's say, 1,500 people working in it, imagine if each one of them had to have their own printer instead of using a network printer. The cost would be prohibitive. We can share storage. So network drives can enable us to save money. Instead of giving everyone a 2 terabyte drive, we can have shared storage, and we can add storage as it's needed. We can share applications, so licenses can be shared across the network as well as having server-based control. We can make sure that our organization is effective if we use centralized resources when a given user's computer fails. Not if. When a given user's computer fails, they can be up and running again extremely quickly. We can ensure secure access by validating user IDs and passwords. We can also have centralized backup systems so that data can be recovered easily. And we can roll out centralized applications like virus protection. So there are lots of benefits to having a network. Now, network architecture, for the most part these days, tends to be a star network with a centralized hub in which each machine runs independently from the other ones, but they're connected through a hub. In the past, it was more common to see things like ring and bus networks that avoided the need of a network server but had the problem of being hard to keep up all the time. Now, in the past, we might have debated whether it was valuable to have a home network. And someday soon that may become a topic for debate again, to be honest. Right now, I'd invite you to think about the idea, is a home wireless network necessary? You might say absolutely. So, if you answered yes, you were probably thinking about the idea of centralized access to high-speed internet. But you might also have been thinking about how else would I access the printer or other resources. Now, fewer and fewer computers are connected by wires. We typically will see desktops attached through Ethernet cables still, but in fact, even desktops now, we've stopped wiring them up and have started connecting them through wireless cards. If you want to connect up your desktop, you can even find USB wireless adapters these days for very little money. Laptops, on the other hand, of course, have Wi-Fi capability built in, and many other devices now have this kind of capability. Phones, of course, as well as other devices. And in fact, the list gets quite long these days because virtually everybody has a wireless has a Wi-Fi network at home. Now, this leads us to a discussion about security. There are lots of people still out there who don't know how to secure their wireless networks, and the downsides to this, you should be able to talk about this. You have the potential of having your information stolen, anything that's shared on that network, including banking files, pictures, etc. You have the potential that other people will use your internet connection to do illegal things, and that you might just have the police knocking on your door. And you also have the potential that your bandwidth will start to be used by your neighbors, resulting in slow streaming for you and potentially extra fees. So talking about network security, we can talk about the different types of security. So WPA, Wi-Fi Protected Access, provides two services in one for your Wi-Fi network. One thing it does is encrypts information that proceeds through the airwaves. If you don't use it, you have the risk that your unencrypted information traveling through the airwaves will be retrieved by someone to use it for illegal purposes. WPA also authenticates users. Make sure that no one else is using your bandwidth. No one else is on your network. There's two types of WPA authentication. WPA, which isn't quite as secure as WPA2. Now, you will see, typically on most routers, you'll still see the option to set up wired equivalent privacy, or WEP. Don't use it. Essentially, anyone with any knowledge of hacking can break through that system these days. So the only reason it's still there is just in case there are older devices that may not support WPA. Now there's another option for security types called MAC filtration, and what it does is looks at the unique identifier for a device and provides it access. Now, this kind of filtration, refusing or allowing access based on that unique address of a device, is somewhat powerful. However, there are two downsides to that approach. So that whitelist, blacklist approach, the downsides to it, the first is that in the absence of WPA authentication, the information that passes between the device and the network is unencrypted and subject to sniffers, and it's not as secure as well because you can in fact spoof the MAC address, so you can fake a MAC address. But the bigger is that lack of encryption. Another downside, by the way, to MAC address filtration is that you have to take the time to put in that MAC address. You have to find it out and you have to put it in. Again, to emphasize, don't try using WEP for your standard security approach. You won't find that it's terribly effective. So, 3 important things with regards to setting up a secured wireless network. Use WPA. Make sure that you have encryption in place. Make sure that you change your router name and default administrator password so that nobody else can get into your Wi-Fi network. The last thing you want someone to do is to move to your router, put in the default administrator password, get access to it, and lock you out of your own network. Now, we should also talk about the idea of network traffic and controlling this. So a firewall will check data as it moves from the internet to your network. It'll check requests, it'll check data, and any downloads that you make. The firewall knows what typical viruses and worms look like, and it has a profile of hacker behavior. So it is intended, it works to block all of these things from getting onto your network. The good news is that Windows 7 and later cuts, these operating systems have firewalls that are default enabled. So they'll automatically look for these things. Now, in order to make them effective, they have to continue updating signatures of typical malware. And it's worth noting that with the recent retirement of Windows 7, Microsoft no longer recommends that and is not maintaining the firewall. Keep in mind, an ineffective firewall can result in an infection of every computer on the network, not just the one that is out of date. Okay, as an activity today then, go ahead and check your build computer. Is the Windows firewall enabled? Make sure that it is. Have a look at the settings that are available there. When you've finished, go ahead and do the Google Classroom exit card. Now, we have a few wireless routers in the classroom, and you will configure this as an assignment, set up the various kinds of security, log in, change the name of the router, and change the password to protect it. So go ahead and get to work on those activities. Thanks very much. Have a great night.